Welcome to the Good Karma Sportfishing Podcast. I'm your host, Captain Ryan Van Fleet. Hey guys, thanks for tuning in. It is Sunday, July 26th. The wind machine has been up down here in South Florida. Now, today I see that it's finally starting to let up a little bit, and I don't know, it's just, you don't know. In the middle of the night, I guess it's been really flat, and then, man, it cranks, and then it'll crank during the day, and then it's lightening up in the evening. So, like I said, if you're down here and you want to get out, your best bet is to fish in the evening and scrap your plans during the day. And then you might be able to get a good shot at some afternoon dolphin at around like 3 o'clock, like that time frame. Now, typically those fish will pop up within 600 feet all the way into 300, just depending on what type of water quality that you have out there right now. So I haven't been out the past few days, so I couldn't tell you. So I don't know. All I know is it's been bumpy, and that's it. I don't know what time of day the fish are popping up or anything like that. So I did move around some charters, and I was able to get some people rescheduled into dates where people had fallen off. So, like I said, I had an excellent July, really good. The best July I've had as far as the bottom fishing goes. I did some things differently, and I'm very happy with it. And I had to work for every fish. I want to be honest with you guys. It was not easy. So I was able to scratch it out for people and put smiles on their faces, and that's all that matters to me. And on the other aspect is on the other side of things, I had to turn away all the dolphin fishing charters, all the people that called me for dolphin fishing charters. And now I was booked up like a month ahead, okay? So which tends to be what my schedule is nowadays. I'm out at least 15 to 20 days right now. So if you're looking to book a trip, you need to get on the books with me very, very soon, because the days of booking last minute and hoping for good weather and all that good stuff, those days are like few and far between. So if you're looking to book, you need to call and you need to start making plans. Otherwise, you're going to miss out on those peak dates. And you can't control the weather. I mean, usually the people that catch the most fish with me are the guys that book like, hey, we're still going to come, and then they have other plans, so they're not so crazy on, oh, we're going to get winded out, or they don't worry about it. So if you start worrying about that type of shit, you're going to jinx yourself. So I remember the old days, man. We just booked the trip and we went fishing. So we didn't try to play. When you start trying to play the game is when you're going to start getting screwed, as all good fishermen know. And I'm like one of those guys. I I got to play this and do that, and I've gotten screwed. So now I just I just tell it like it is, and I don't push it. So I don't look for short little window gaps unless I know I have it. So I just I'm like, I better off rescheduling. So I had to turn away the dolphin fishing trips. And I turned them away early this year, and I'm very thankful I did that. So I knew there wasn't going to be any dolphin in the month of June and July. And there were dolphin here, but man, were they tiny. And that's just not my business module. I just don't go out there and kill all those small fish. I just don't. It's just not me. I don't like to do that. So I have to be able to know that I can go out there and successfully put clients on fish and nice fish and have a consistent bite and not run them around all day, because they are paying money for a fishing trip. Okay, so I do ask clients whether they want to go on a hunting trip, and what the difference is between a hunting trip and a catching fish trip is a hunting trip is you're looking for a big fish offshore, okay, and the weather's got to be right and all that good stuff, because I really like to look for large fish. So, and what's happened was in the month of July, we had a lot of small fish, okay, a lot of tiny fish. So I'm just fortunate enough that I was been able to, like I said, years ago, because this same thing happened and I got caught in that mess. So that's part of the reason why I had to start mutton. I learned how to mutton fish and learned how to bottom fish like I did. And a lot of guys don't know how to do that. So I just have that, I'm happy that I have that backup. So that's why I'm always encouraging people to learn several different types of fishing and have that in your back pocket, because you never know when you're going to need it. And it's just for me, it's just a waste of my clients' time to go out there and throw back small schoolies all day. And then at the end of the day, I might have to come home with 3. So and then you're totally stressed out and the client's pissed off. And it's just for me, my motto is leave the small fish for the boat behind you. And it's just not my deal. So I'm sorry if that offends people, but that's just how I run my business. So I don't take the trip. Even if the client wants to go, I'm like, I'm not your guy. Okay, I'm not your guy. But things have changed because it's August, and just as I predicted, the larger fish are starting to show. Guys, I'm going to let you in on a little tip here, okay? We had a lot of flat, calm weather in July. The weather patterns have changed, okay? Now, for those of you guys that are relatively new to fishing, and I have a lot of those guys that have bought boats and they're just now starting to learn about fishing in general, the bigger dolphin migrations, those fish are down around Puerto Rico, okay? Down in that area. And they got to get pushed out of there. What's going to push them out of there? A storm. Those fish hate extreme low pressure, okay? So what happens is that last week we seen 2 tropical disturbances and some more tropical disturbances down there that are just starting to move through, and they're kicking those fish out of there, okay? They're moving them. So I think 2 days ago, they moved through some larger fish. 20 to 30 pound slammers and gaffers are on the move. Now, I got a report today that there were some 20 and 30 pound gaffers on the move, but they had lockjaw. So I don't know. That's where I say you got to have the live bait and you got to have somebody to cast. So they're picky. So that's just how it rolls. And I always tell people, if you're going to go out there looking for a big fish, you better have some live bait in your well. So you're getting ready to rig and go offshore. Here's what I recommend. And, obviously sea witches are killer, blue and white. They work great. But I do love to run the bait strips this time of year because they really do a number on dolphin. Especially if you find a piece of debris or some stubborn fish. I think I mentioned in my last podcast on the full moon last year, and I think it was August, I had some nice fish behind the boat. I couldn't get them to eat. I dropped those bait strips way back there, rigged over sea witches, and man, did I crush them. It was awesome. It provoked such a reactionary bite that the fish just went nuts. And they would not go on ballyhoo, rigged ballyhoo and sea witches, or any squid, and the fish even had lockjaw to pilchards. So, but it was so funny, I still remember this, I can see it in my head. I did get them to go on tiny blue runners that I had in my live well. Those baits are really fast, and they fire up those fish, okay? So what happens is if you find some fish that are really lockjaw, and it really does help to have those small blue runners or small baby jacks in your well, and then you hook them through the belly, and you let them swim away from your boat. Okay, you want to give them a cast, and you want to let them swim away, like free line them. A lot of guys, you'll hook them through the nostrils, and the bait will swim right back at you. That can hurt you actually. Okay, so I personally, when I've got fish behind the boat, I want the live bait to run away from me and stay on the surface. So if you hook him through the back, like back by the anus, and he'll swim on the top and he'll swim away from you. So I do that because a lot of my clients can't cast, and they'll fling off the live bait because I want them to be able to make the cast. So what I do is I'll hook up the live baits now more towards the anus, and then I'm gonna bump the boat in gear a little bit, get the bubbles going. Now, if you don't already know about the bubbles, then that's something I'll talk about. But you got to have a good bubble trail. So, and the bubble trails attract the fish. So what you do is I'll bump it into gear, and I'll have the clients free line the baits, and the baits will dart away from the boat with the hook like that, and they have free movement, and they're just going to start blitzing across the surface and watch what happens. a fast bait is going to trigger a bite, even from the most lethargic fish. Now, with blue runners and little jacks, those jacks you catch off the weed lines, they go absolutely insane for those. So if you do come across a stubborn bull that's come up into your chum, what you guys can do is, and if he's not eating the live baits, take the small blue runner or jack out of there, and then you need to cut. And one thing I learned, this is what I learned from a commercial fisherman buddy of mine, is that you make a little slice down that blue runner's side and get him bleeding a little bit, just a little bit. And then you put that hook into him, and then you free line him out and watch what happens. I talked about that in a podcast when I talked about cudas in the slick, and if you guys don't already know this, a lot of you guys will throw out a blue runner to try to feed the cuda, and the cuda doesn't eat him. But if you put a slice down him and get him to bleed, it gets him going crazy. It's the same thing for bull dolphin, guys. It's the same thing. It gets them to eat. Okay, it gets them to eat. Anytime you add blood, like fresh blood from a fish like that, that's blitzing across the water, that triggers a bite. So just a little tip for you before you guys start breaking out the spirit guns and jumping in the water and doing all sorts of crazy shit to get a bull. So I see some guys on their pages, Instagram, they're even shooting a fish now with guns. I'm like, yeah, man, no thanks. So I think it's funny to watch, but I like guns, and I like to see that weird shit. But I just tell people, no, I can't do that on my boat. It's too dangerous. So, but if it was just me, that would be a lot of fun. Oh my gosh. So I kind of got off topic a little bit, but there's a little live bait tip for you. Try it the next time. You're going to be really happy with it. And so trust me. Okay. So I mentioned that I'm going to talk about in my Facebook group, I'm going to talk a little bit about chuggers. And so I do like to run chuggers in the summer. Especially if the seas are kicked up a little bit, because I kind of like to mix it up a little bit. I run a lot of sea witches, and I do run a chugger once in a while. My favorite chuggers are the blue and white chuggers, but they have to have the silver flakes in them for the reflection. If you don't think it makes a difference, it does. They got to have that sun has to reflect on them a little bit to give it that shine in the water, to provoke that fish to eat sometimes. They're seeing lots of lures out there. So, but what happens is a flash is just an instinct in a fish's brain that gets him to eat. That's what happens. They're genetically bred that way. They know what a bait fish school looks like, and that means food. So with a chugger, you pick up the ones that have the purple, have the silver specks in mine. I buy mine at Eddie's tackle shop here in Tavernier. He's got a whole bunch of them, and they're priced very well versus what I'm seeing online. So I think they're only like $3 to $4 a piece. Now they don't quote me on that, maybe $5, but the markup now, there's no margin in tackle. I think Eddie might make $1. You don't make a lot off fish and tackle, guys. So especially the tackle stores, I feel. Sometimes I'm like, oh my God, how did you make any money? So, but again, I'm getting off sidetrack here. So chuggers, what I really like about the chugger, is I haven't talked about it before, is running a bait strip underneath your chugger. And what that does is the chugger, has that hollow head in there, and it really does provide a lot of protection for the bait strip. And the fish love a chugger with a bait strip. So as far as the chugger go, they have more of a concave face, so you can run those in a little rougher water. And so, which is great. So you can put the bait strip rigged underneath it, and then that head will slide right over the hook. Now, something that I do, that I might show in the Facebook group, is I add some chafe. It's chafe tubing into the chugger, so make it a little stiff rig. So just enough so the hook runs straight and doesn't go limp in there. I don't like the way that the hooks run with most chuggers, so I personally like to run a stiff piece of chafe tube in there, and that allows the hook to run straight. as far as, and it's a stiffer rig, which helps with the hook set. And then it also allows me to run the hook in an upright position if I have weeds, so I can do a little bit more maneuvering that way. And I feel that the bait strip runs really well with that chafe tubing in there. So just a little tip for you there. You just have to play around with it as far as the rig goes, but it works really well. I buy those Phantom offshore chafe tube, that chafe tubing. It's there's a whole bunch of them. They're just white little pieces of plastic, and then you can run your line through there and cut it accordingly for however long you want the chafe tubing to be. So, like I said, I just do that so the hook stays nice, and it adds some. It also adds some protection. I don't know, it's as far as toothy critters goes. So when you, like I said, Wahoo love the bait strip flash. It really gets them to bite it. So if there's any Wahoo along the weed lines, then you have that little piece of chafe tubing in there, which will help prevent the bite offs as well. So now on flatter days, it's better to run what they call the kicker. It's the same as, it looks like a chugger, but it's got a flatter face, and that's what you run when it's kind of calmer out, like 1 foot, maybe a 2 foot sea, and then you put the bait strip in that, and then you run it on your longs too. Works really well. But you gotta buy the ones that have the silver specks in them. The more silver specks in them, the better. My personal preference is the blue and white chugger, blue and white, and then purple works great you can just pick up different colors, but pink and white with silver specks. And like I said, you can buy those at Eddie's Tackle and Tavernier if you're coming down. And he's located. He's right on 1. And it used to be the old Anglers, so I think it's Eddie's, Angler Eddie's now, but you can find that information you can just Google it, just Eddie's or Angler Eddie's, and that's right on 1 in Tavernier, basically right across the street from Tavernier Creek Marina. So my home base, yeah. So pick yourself up some. You can find them on the internet. They're chuggers. I like the 5.5-inch ones, the best. That's a perfect size. Any smaller than that, I don't really like. I just don't. I really don't. So they're perfect for running the bait strip because it really prevents the bait strip from tearing out in the weeds. Just like the chugger and the kicker, they really help prevent the bait from washing out when it's a little rougher. So the same goes with the bait strip. It just really does provide a lot of protection for that. So, and you're going to crush them. So, I mean, it's the perfect summertime and wintertime rig. So for running a strip off the riggers. So try it. I've had a lot of problems running some bait strips off the outriggers short. You can run a chugger. It'll protect it. So, but that's all I got to say about that. Just a little tip for you guys. And 2, the second one I mentioned that I was going to talk about, summertime Wahoo. So we are going to see a push of Wahoo, smaller Wahoo, that are going to be here on the August moon and September moon, maybe the September moon. It just depends, but we should see some fish that are going to push through. I know that last year in August there were some nice Wahoo. They were up by North Key Largo, some bigger ones that were on the moon, and they tend to show up. It just depends on what the current's doing and the water quality and the bait, but we might see them fish show up in August. So with that being said, I kind of want you guys to be ready because you will run into them offshore. And I'm not going to talk about the usual trolling for them. I want you guys to be ready with vertical jigs. Okay, vertical jigs. So here's how I approach catching Wahoo on vertical jigs. I don't get it, especially on debris. Okay, debris. I want to talk a little bit about that. So they will be here. They're going to be on debris. And if you get lucky enough to find a beautiful piece of debris out there in 700, 800 feet with tons of schoolies and lots of action, here's what I do, okay? And I still remember the first 2 times that I caught Wahoo on debris, and it was awesome. And if you've never caught a Wahoo on a jig, vertical jigging, then you have not experienced, you need to experience that because it is badass and the adrenaline and the hit is awesome. Now they are tougher to hook on the jig, okay? It's because you have to jam that hook into that jaw, and you got to get it to sit. So you don't have the luxury of having a boat drag that fish and keep that fish hooked up. You're at a standstill with a fish that's moving. That's one of the fastest fish in the sea. Okay, so what you do is, number one, when you approach a piece of debris and there's lots of schoolies there, like I'll tell you, for example, like the last big wahoo I caught, I found a mesh, like not a mesh, but a big piece of netting out there. And there were lots of small fish on it. And it had gotten hit like several times by other boats. But I told my clients, I go, I bet you anything there's a bunch of wahoo underneath there and nobody has touched them. So, and sure as shit, there were a bunch of wahoo underneath that debris. And it got hit all day. And everybody, like, they overlooked them. They overlooked them. And we went in, we slid in there, we caught, like, everybody caught one. And we caught a limit of wahoo in the middle of freaking, like, August. So a boat limit. It was badass. And we just slid in on them, and I was like, well, we're going to catch these small dolphin? I go, no, drop those jigs down. And I was marking them underneath the debris. I could see them. I go, drop it down. You just know when they're there because of the how, like, on that particular piece of debris, there were, like, lots of tuna around it. It was, like, lit. And it was late in the day, and I was like, I bet you anything they're there. And they were. So it's always best to have, when you go offshore, is that you hear of all these different things. You got to have this, that, this, and that. So when I go offshore in the summer, I keep I carry a jig rod with me, and it's rigged with a jig. Okay. So, and also too, don't get all crazy about having to wire it. Now I do wire mine, and I didn't need to, so I don't do it anymore. Really, the kingfish will cut it off, or small jacks will cut it before a wahoo will, because you have a longer, like I said, it's hard for those wahoo to bite through the assist cord. So it's hard for them to do that. If you get, typically with wahoo, they're not swallowing that jig; they're getting it hooked in the corner of their mouth. And every wahoo that I've hooked on a jig, I've caught in the corner of the mouth. Now I have had short pieces of wire, but I don't think I really needed it. I really don't. So this year I'm just going to use my standard. I'll have 60 pound, a short piece of 60 pound, and 60 pound fluorocarbon, and then I'll have it just rigged straight to the jig, because if they break it off, they break it off. So, but they really don't. I mean, every wahoo that I've hooked on a jig, it's been in the corner of the mouth. They've never swallowed it. So, and with wire, sometimes they really do shy away from it. They really do, especially when if you can't get somebody to jig fast enough, it happens. So just be aware of that. Now, what colors do wahoo want? They want a white looking glow bait offshore. They love a glow jig. And sometimes they just don't really give a shit what it looks like, as long as it's moving fast and it has some flash to it. So you got to have some bling on it. So with some hollow foil, the holographic jigs work really well. So have some bling on the jig. The last couple of jigs I've caught on what they call a Joppo style jig, and it's got a big piece of hollow glow in it, and I keep those just for that. I'd like to have my jig, I like a 150 gram jig for that, because I want it to sink quick. And then for my jigging rods, I use Shimano Twin Power 8000s because of the retrieve rate. So the jig has to rip through the water to get the fish to eat. So just be aware of that. They don't want a bait that's looking like it's suicidal, guys. They want a bait that's moving really fast to get them to bite, if they're not in an extremely feeding frenzy mode. So just something for you guys to think about when you're going offshore. They will be there, and they will push, and you will catch a few. So it's going to happen. And speaking of wahoo, okay, guys, speaking of wahoo, I just started the Wahoo Slayer series, and it's a course series that I'm going to be releasing over the next few months, actually. So I just finished part 1 of the Wahoo Slayer series. Now, what the first course is, it's basically part 1. I released part 1 of 3 in this series, and there's going to be 3 parts to this series. Now, there's going to be a lot to learn, and it took many years and a lot of money and practice and trial and error to perfect what I do when it comes to this stuff. So part 1 focuses on my style of high-speed downrigger fishing for wahoo and large tunas. Now, I'm going to show you guys the tools that I use, and along the way in part 1, along the way in the series, I'm going to be dropping knowledge bombs. So it's just not going to be a how to run a downrigger. There's going to be a lot of talk in there about with a lot of, like, I call them knowledge bombs and little nuggets. So that's how I'm going to be doing the series. So as I'm showing you guys tools, I'm going to be basically going through like a seminar style series of what I do for you guys. Now, like I said, part 1 is released, and it's part 1 of a 3-part series. Okay, and what I'm going to be doing with the Wahoo series, Wahoo Slayer series, is I'm going to spread it out and divide it into parts, and it's going to be released over a period of time, okay? Weather and schedule pending. And I want to have the entire Wahoo series done before the end of September, okay? So you guys are ready for a Wahoo push in maybe October or November and into the winter. So I want everybody listening that really wants to get better at catching wahoo and do it more consistently and learn all the little tricks. I'm going to be releasing it in a seminar. Now, I had a lot of guys that pressured me last year for information, and I got to tell you what, I didn't give up the ghost, man. I didn't give it up. So I'm very happy that I didn't. So there's lots of little tricks. I'm going to be having some guest people come on and be part of the series, is what the plan is. So it's just not going to be me. And like I said, all plans are subject to change. So that's what I'm thinking right now. So it's going to be really good. And now, like I said, I just released part 1 of the 3-part series, and I'm going to talk about downrigger fishing. And now the cost is $99.99 for part 1 right now. So what I'm doing is that, part 1 is going to focus on the downrigger fishing at higher speeds for those guys that really want to learn it. And the filming is going to be, a lot of the filming is required on the water for part 2 and 3. And this series, what you do is you're going to make that purchase, and then you're going to be notified when part 2 and 3 are available. And it'll probably be like, I just released it on Saturday. And it's probably going to be 2 to 3 weeks before I'm all done with part 2 and 3, because a lot of it's going to be happening on the water. I'm going to show you guys exactly what to do, and I'm going to try to get my mechanic involved with it to show you guys all the tricks to running a downrigger at higher speed. Guys, there's a lot of tricks, okay? I see a lot of guys are putting downriggers on trying to do it. If you're not doing it the way I'm doing it, you're going to tear the pins apart and bust up your downrigger, and you're going to lose them. Just how it goes. If you're buying all this cheap bases and stuff, you're going to rip them off. So that's why I didn't talk too much about it, because I really was not comfortable with it, because there are a lot of things that I do that I can't share, because a lot of it's mechanical stuff. So, but when you buy part 1 now at $99.99, you're going to get part 1 in a bonus, and then part 2 in a bonus, and part 3. Now, if you buy part 2 when it comes out, you're going to, part 1 you're not going to get a bonus, and part 2 you're not going to get the bonus. And then if you buy when part 3 comes out, you'll get part 1 with no bonus, part 2 with no bonus, and then you'll get part 3, and the cost is going to be higher. So in other words, I'm going to get rid of the bonus after a few weeks, and then that I have on there now, and then I'm going to raise the price. So just so you guys know that. Now, part 1's bonus is what I call the mutton button. And oh man, it's doing really well for me this summer, and it's getting lethargic fish to bite, and that's part of the bonus for part 1. Part 2, I'm going to keep it quiet on what I'm going to do for that one. So, but anyways, you can find the course, the Wahoo Slayer Series Part 1. It's on my tackle shop. It's when you go to www.goodkarmafishingtackle.com, and then on the front page you'll see courses, and just click on that, and then you'll see the Wahoo Series Part 1. And Yeah, it's going to be really good. I'm going to share a lot of information that you cannot find anywhere, any magazines or any paid seminars, because it's going to be my style of fishing, okay? My style. If you want to learn how I do it, that's what I'm going to be talking about. I'm not going to be talking about any other guys. I'm not going to be talking about high-speed fishing because I don't high-speed fish because it does not catch fish consistently. So it's proven for me. Now, my style works for me in my backyard. I tell people, hey, this style may not work for you, but it might, because a lot of people, they don't like to change and they're so set in their ways because they think they know everything and they end up like getting burned. So, and it's guys that are willing to step outside the box and learn and not afraid to try something and have the confidence to do it along the way. Those are the guys that are going to be successful. That's just how the way the world's working. And fish change, guys. Fish change, genetically they change. There's a lot more boats out on the water now. So I'm going to be teaching you guys strategies to stay ahead. Okay? So, and because the fish are going to get pressured this year like you've never seen them. These fish have never going to, the amount of boats that are going to be pressuring these fish all the time, especially down here, is going to be insane. So I want to give you guys, like I said in my last podcast, I want to give you guys the tools to be successful because I really want you guys to do well. Okay? I want to fast track you guys to that point, and that's the whole purpose behind the seminars because, hey, you know, I wish they would have been available for me and not just generic stuff that everybody can read. So the stuff I'm going to give you guys is stuff that I do.